Welcome back to Week 4, Unit 4. My name is Jocelyn Dart. I'm a user experience strategist and I'm speaking to you today from Sydney, Australia. In the last unit, you found out how to refine the SAP Fiori Launchpad user experience. Now, once you have deployed your Fiori user experience and your project has gone live, you will need to support it. So this unit is about how you support Fiori. One of the first things you want to do with a new user experience is monitor usage to get some idea of how well it is working for your business users and, of course, your business, and whether you need to make any adjustments. You might even start this process during your user acceptance testing, at least to get some idea of whether things are working. Questions you might want to ask include which apps get the most hits, where are people spending the most time, which Launchpad features are used most, which apps do they visit briefly and back out again? Maybe there's a problem there. If you have users in different roles or different locations, are there any differences in how they behave? Knowing who is using your apps and where helps you determine whether your users are behaving as you expect them to and need them to get the business outcomes you want. Perhaps we might need to provide some extra assistance to some users. Maybe we need to adjust their homepage design or the text on the tiles to make it easier for them to find the right apps. Okay, so Web Analytics is a SAP Cloud Platform solution that you can use to gather and report on this sort of information. It provides out-of-the-box content designed to help you accelerate the adoption of your new user experience, including options to help you manage privacy considerations. Let's see what it looks like when you apply to an SAP S/4HANA system. So here I've got a regular SAP S/4HANA system and it's a Launchpad, so it's got a number of apps on it. Now, we will need to apply a small snippet. We do that in a Launchpad plugin, which is a standard extension, and you can find out about that extension option, Launchpad plugins, in the help portal. For your Fiori Launchpad guide. Here's the Web Analytics site itself in the cloud platform. So you can see as an administrator, there's various ways you can control how you're going to monitor and analyze your system. So there's site management, group management, user management, etc., etc. We won't look at all of these, but maybe let's take a little look at site management for a site that's already been set up. And this is for an S/4HANA site. So you can see here, I basically need the website details, a couple other things. I'll give it a name. I've got some settings for controlling privacy settings and consent banners. And in the advanced option, I can control things like which events I'm actually tracking and how I'm going to anonymize the data. So you can do those sorts of things as well. This is the snippet that you need to apply as a Launchpad plugin to your site. And once you've done that, everything I do on this site, every click, every page load is all monitored. So let's have a look and see what the reports look like. So there's a number of dashboards that you get out of the box. You can see these here: the home, the visitors, pages, technology, referrer, clip map, navigations, and then of course you can do custom ones as well. So these give you some quite interesting information. So you can see here things such as bounce rate, visitors, etc. And you can even monitor for multiple sites. So you can just separate those out by site name and by space. And of course you can control what period you want to look at the data over. So that's that bounce rate, which is where they go into an app and come out, number of visitors, number of which of those are new visitors, number of visits, how long are people actually spending in your site. If we have a look at the visitors dashboard, here you can see things such as visit duration, which gives you a good idea of how much people are using your system. You also get to see locations, very, very useful, particularly if you're doing, say, an international site and you want to see who's using your site most. Visitors and return visitors, some settings on that, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that one's pretty good. Let's have a look at pages. Okay, so in pages, you can see page views. What are our least visited pages? Maybe people are having trouble finding them. Maybe they're genuinely just things that we don't do very often. What are your top pages? How often do they get viewed? How many people are looking at them? bounce rate across pages. So, are there things where people are going into an app and going, oops, that's the wrong app, and coming back out again? Usually means the text on the app, on the tile, needs to be changed. Okay, technology is a good one if you're doing things across mobile devices or different browser versions. You can see who's using which browser version. You can see which languages are being used. You can see whether people are using mobiles and tablets, which operating systems are used. These can really, really help you direct your testing needs. And in the click map, this is quite a good one for seeing your Launchpad features. So you can see the blue sort of click marking is quite heavy on the search. So they're using the search a lot, which is a good thing. Here in navigation, you can see if your insight to action navigation is working. So you can actually see what's the way people are going down from one thing to the next, and how many visits, how many people have sort of found that option, because that's one that's used more often than most. So this is quite an interesting one to play around with. And then, of course, you can do custom views. So let's have a little look at a dashboard that's been done for an S/4HANA system. So you can see here, okay, so we've sort of combined features from a number of the other dashboards. So here we wanted to see, for instance, which are our most used apps. So you can see, okay, well, home, of course, but after that, so the advanced compliance reports are getting quite a bit of attention. And you can also see things about app performance. So GUI for HTML is behaving worse. So then we want to go around and check that we've set all the absolute possible configuration settings to optimize our GUI for HTML performance, of which there are several. We can also see app usage time. This is quite interesting because you need to add some qualitative research to this, because people are spending a lot of the time in that app. Does that mean they're genuinely doing a lot of work in there, or that they're maybe having difficulty using the app? So it's worthwhile, interviewing a few users or even going and watching them doing a usability study and seeing how they're using the app. And visit duration, how long are they spending on the site? Always really useful also to give management an idea of how successful things are. So you can see, you can scroll down and give other sorts of things as well. So here we've included the visitor by country and region and the page view trend as well. Okay, so any of these reports you can create, you can take snapshots and share them with your management. And that's a great way to give people an idea of what's going on. So that's web analytics. Now there's some other sorts of support help that you get pretty much given to you. The first one is the user assistant or the web assistant. This is the context sensitive help. Now there's a little tiny bit of configuration you need to do. We've got a nice blog sort of pointing you to the detailed information in the official Launchpad guides here. And what happens when you do that configuration, you'll see that little help icon pop up. And that help icon, when you click on it, it gives you these lovely little bubbles. And when you click on a bubble or you click on a term, it explains what that means. So it's quite useful for users who are perhaps new to a business process or new to this app. It also includes things such as some apps have guided tours or learning tutorials. There'll also be an about this app link to the actual app documentation, and there's also what's new updates. So you get quite a lot for Fiori apps. You can also hook it through to your normal GUI help as well. If you get all this content out of the box for no additional charge, it's part of your SAP S/4HANA system. But if you want to extend that content or create custom content in addition to what's there, you do that using SAP Enable Now. And of course, then you need an additional subscription for that. One of my favorite features, having been someone who answers a lot of questions from actual customers, is the About feature, because this is a great support feature. From this, you can find out from any user exactly where they are and get some really useful information for resolving a problem, or at least looking up some further details. One of the nice things about this About feature is it's not just a feature that you can look at. You can actually pass this information across using the option to contact support. So if you can configure that, and there's instructions on how to configure that in the Launchpad guide, then you can send this information directly through to your SAP Solution Manager if you're using that to do ticketing, or you can send it to a custom ticketing system. Okay, so let's have a little bit of a look at how that About feature works. So we'll just have a look at this one. Okay, so this is a standard Fiori Launchpad. Okay, and here you'll see if I go up on the Launchpad on the homepage and I go up to the About feature, already it's going to give me a little bit of information. So here, for instance, I get the exact UI5 version I'm on. I also get details of exactly which web browser and which version of S/4HANA I'm on, which is, you know, always good to know. Sometimes people don't know. If I go into a particular app, I'll actually get a bit more information. So I'll get all of that again, but I'll get a bit more. So if I do, I'm just using one of the overview pages here. And if I go into the About feature here, one of the most useful things I'm going to get is the actual app ID. So you get the technical name and the version and everything as well. But the app ID I can actually look up in the Fiori apps reference library. So it saves a lot of time. Make sure you include that on a ticket. And it also gives you the component hierarchy to use to report. If you need to raise an incident, you put the app ID and that support component on the incident, and that'll get it to the right people at the right time, the right team to resolve any problems. Now, it works also in GUI and classic user interfaces, and it's a great one for solving discussions about whether it's a Fiori app or not. So you can see here on a GUI transaction, it says T-code, so it's GUI, and it gives you the actual transaction code. All right, so that's quite a useful one. There are all sorts of other support tools that you can use. Too much for us to go through in a course, but there's content checks, health checks, logging and tracing checks, performance tracing, client-side diagnostics, and all sorts of other things. Now, you'll find details on this in the Fiori Launchpad guide. So if you go to the help portal and you search for the Fiori Launchpad product page, you'll get to all the Fiori Launchpad guides. You just need to pick up the correct guide for your version of the system, whether it's Business Suite or Suite on HANA, or S/4HANA. But let me show you the client-side diagnostics, because this is a good one to show to your users as well. It's another way you can get them to help you support them. And what happens here is all you need to tell them to do is do Control plus Alt plus Shift plus S. Now they can do this on any screen. If they can do Control plus Alt plus Shift plus S, what happens at this point is it opens up a new tab with a whole heap of diagnostic information. And you can actually use these to get details of what the app has been doing. You can start a performance trace and all those sorts of things. And the best thing is, although this looks quite technical, your user doesn't need to understand it. They just run it and then they export it and send it to you. And you have a trace of what's going on that you can then use to figure out where the hiccup may be, or pass it on to an SAP incident if you need our help to sort it out. So another very good tool to know about. Some of the tools you'll find in there mention caching. Now, caching is a whole topic in itself. When you're dealing with things that are running on mobile apps, on smartphones, on tablets, on laptops, there's a lot of pieces between you and your backend system. So, the caches really are about optimizing the performance on each of those points. So there's quite a lot of caches that are involved. As a general rule, what caches do is improve performance. So they improve performance by holding certain information in situations where you expect the configurations and the activations to be pretty much stable. So that's your production system, of course. Now, if you think of a development or quality assurance system where you're changing your configuration and your activation more frequently, then yes, you will need to clear the cache there. But still, you want to try and do it the minimum you possibly can, because every time you clear the cache, that's going to mean you're rereading some information, so it's a little bit slower. There are some circumstances also where you need to clear the personalization cache, even in production, particularly if you're introducing, say, major changes to a new app. You want to, again, try and minimize it, but if you have to do it, at least tell your users about it so they can reset their personalizations. And By the way, I always like to point out to support people that have the importance of personalization, because sometimes I find people want to turn it off. And it is possible to turn some of it off, but you should really avoid doing it. Now, you would have seen through all the units in this course that there's a lot of personalization given to you with Fiori, a lot. There's filters, table filters, search filters, there's variants, there's app variants that you set up through like Adapt UI, there's all these homepage edit options, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of personalization involved there. And that's before even getting like to user action settings. Personalization is about aiding productivity. And it also aids your emotional and mental well-being. It distresses you because you can sort of organize things in a way that works for you. And people, most employees, they're also consumers in their real life, right? They're used to using smartphones, they're used to using tablets, they're used to using laptops at home, they want to come to work and be able to do the same sort of things. And they want to be able to do things like, just reorganize the screen in a way that works better for them, be able to change the colors, so that it works better for whatever lighting conditions they happen to be in. Particularly if they're, for instance, working from home or with their device where you could be sort of anywhere at any time. So it is a little bit more extra work for you as a support person to work through your support procedures. But remember, there may be like 20 people in your support organization. There's probably thousands of your users. Do the right thing by them, and think about your support procedures, but make sure that people can use that personalization that really does lift their user experience to another level. Now, I mentioned that there are some things in the Launchpad configuration parameters you can do to control the availability of personalization. I have seen some sites sort of roll out personalization in stages. That is possible. But probably the better thing really to do is to default the personalization as people want to use it. So some of these things you can do as an administrator. For instance, you can preset things like the user settings, show one group at a time for the homepage. And another thing you can do is authorize the key users. So these could be business process experts or a central process governance group, who can create some variants, table filter variants, and a list of link favorites and those sorts of things, and preset those defaults on behalf of other users. Now, if they do that, of course, that minimizes the amount of personalization everybody else has to do, and that means if you do have to clear the personalization cache, it's less of a problem and less of a pain for people. So worth doing. Okay, so that's it for this unit. So what you learned in this unit: how you can monitor usage and behaviors, the recommended tools for capturing and resolving user issues, the importance of caches and the importance of cache buster mechanisms, and a few tips about personalization. Thank you very much for listening. You've got one more unit to go in this week and in this course, which is on the Fiori direction and the central launchpad. That's it for me. Enjoy the rest of the course, enjoy the exam, and all the best for your experiences with Fiori.